The newspapers are full of blaming auto workers for the crisis of the auto industry, and you have these senators from Tennessee and Alabama saying you guys have got to cut your wages and you're spoiled, overpaid. If you ever looked on the comments section of Detroit News or Detroit Free Press, whenever there's an article, they have comments and nasty, nasty things that your fellow Michiganders are saying about you, you know. So I wonder how the people in the plants react to that, to being put forward as these demon, overpaid, lazy, etc. auto workers.
I'm going to tell you, it was gravy train when it first started. Okay, I was a young guy and I was doing, I could do a lot of work, heavy work, and the jobs weren't set up as well as but they probably didn't care because they were making so much money, hand over fist.
The auto industry is hard on you physically. Everyone I know has a rotator cuff surgery, carpal tunnel, something wrong with their back, something wrong with their legs. It's hard to stand in one spot hour after hour and do the same thing repetitively.
Sometimes you're standing in one place, but sometimes you're actually walking with it backwards, shooting a screw. I mean, the pain is unbelievable. People are getting hurt, so they offer them 30 and out. Well, that sounds great. And when I hired in, I was one of those people that said, well, if you don't get it after 30 years, you're not going to get it. Actually, that's not true. You know, it turns out it's all a lie. You can't really retire after 30. But on the assembly line, you're so broke down, you know, and hence, when you don't have the break isn't long enough already. You know, in Ford, it was 6 minutes for every hour. So, you know, at 10 hours, you could get 30 minutes. My God, you know, I mean, what can I say?
Some of you remember the first time that concessions were proposed in auto in the late 70s and early 80s, and I'm wondering if you can remember, how did your coworkers react when the union came saying that you had to take concessions at that time?
The auto workers, we more or less think that the business cycles are going to be regular. Every so often you're going to be laid off, but then things will bounce back. We had 2 shifts, right? And all of a sudden we're cut back to 1 shift, right? But we didn't know to be suspicious, right? And as we know now, to be suspicious, because all the promises that we were made back then, that, you know, everybody's going to sacrifice equally and we'll get through this low spot and then you're going to get back to where you were and you're going to be paid back. Well, that was a lie. We never got our vacation days back. We didn't get our full cost of living back. We didn't get our annual 3% raises back. And most of all, we didn't get our fatigue allowance on the job. You know, in other words, we had to work faster and faster for no more money.
We've seen that the Ford contract is being voted on right now, and some locals have actually voted it down. And the ones that have voted it up, it's usually not by a huge margin. Is this surprising to you that people are, some people anyway, are actually voting no?
I don't think they should mess with that 15 minutes, you know, and I don't think the UAW should let them mess with that 15 minutes, you know, and if they do, we should be outraged, you know. The rank and file, we have to stand up and say enough is enough. You know, we just can't let them keep nitpicking, taking stuff from us that we know ain't right. You know, we got to start turning down some of them contracts. Say, okay, you know, we're not going to ratify this. You know, we need our breaks. You know, if anything, instead of all these takeaways, we need to be getting some back, because that the team concept is just got people thinking the jobs are easier. This job might be easier, but the next one you go on is harder. So the repetition of doing the easy and the hard job is tearing you down, getting you them rotator cuffs, toe, and pulling muscles and things. You know, I have never seen so many injuries in my life. You know, like I said, I started in the 70s. The worst that we would have back then was a back injury. You know, maybe an arm injury from lifting some, but the rotator cuffs, it wasn't such thing of a rotator cuff.
Ask them how many people they see come in early to build up their stocks. They already can't keep up with the line.
That is a big problem. You're absolutely correct. As a committee man, I wasn't supposed to say that. Right. I would go ahead and tell me, you're killing us.
Yes.
Let that job Start one
when-
piece by piece, and watch that boss come on over here and start freaking out. Then you're gonna improve.
Before '79, management would push so hard and we would check them. And we would have backing when we checked them. You know? And right, it was still, the guys on the line who'd been there a while knew that there was only so far they could be pushed, and then they would push back. They would take that extra part and do it just like you said, you know, do one piece of stock per job, and they would be 4, 5, 6 positions down the line, steadily doing their job, and management would come and say, okay, you know, and they'd take it off, and then the job would go back to being done in a normal fashion. And if a rep helped that along a little bit, or if it got too outrageous, there was backing from the upper levels of the union. And after '82 at Chrysler, all that backing went away. And gradually they broke down that impulse of, okay, I'm only going to do the work at a normal pace like it says in the contract. And they loaded it up gradually and made people afraid and didn't give people the backing that they needed to successfully fight this. And that's where you are today, just like you said. People come in half an hour early, do anything because they feel like they can't fight it because they won't have the backing.
We've got concessions coming now. Ford's voting on them now. GM and Chrysler are next. But there were concessions before that. There were concessions in the 2007 contract. What were the worst things about the 2007 contract concessions and now?
Well, you know, 2007 though is where they finally said new hires would not ever have a pension plan. Ever. I mean, they would have to put money in a 401k. Depending on, it was different at Chrysler and GM than Ford, but it all amounted to the same thing, that a certain percent of new hires would come in at half pay, $14 an hour, get up max to like $15.50 or maybe $16 after 4 years. And then in some cases they would be able to, as people moved out of the higher paying jobs, they'd be able to move into it. And this was all developed because they said basically parts plants make like $15 an hour, so that would be competitive.
Isn't it the case that having good jobs for auto workers affects not just the people who have those jobs, but broader in the community?
When we were improving our condition, then other people were able to improve their condition by patterning on us. Now that we're giving ground and losing, all the other companies are saying to their workers, okay, you have to lose too now in the same pattern.
I used to have a supervisor, and he would always kind of rag on me. You overpaid UAW workers. And he'd always say that. And so finally one day I thought about it, and I said, well, you know, an entry-level supervisor normally makes about 15% above his highest paid man. So if I made $5 an hour, how much would you make? And, you know, he didn't bother me anymore after that.
Big for a minute. Like, not just in the box of the way the auto industry has always been, but if you could imagine a solution that would save jobs in the auto industry and be good for the economy and just, think big for how the auto industry could be changed, what would it be like?
The UAW knew years in advance. I never saw the article, and I didn't read the paper during that time. Too tired, and I didn't watch the news. But I can tell you, they knew that technology changes were coming. They did not prepare us. They never learned the lessons of the 30s and the 40s. They did not prepare us. We did not come out stronger. We came out demoralized. If one of the questions is the difference, is we were demoralized, we were beaten back, we were prepared for all the future concessions, and which continued on because we never really got back our 3% annual raise. It just came back in a form, houses disappeared, employees disappeared, people went to jail. If our union really did what it was supposed to do, it would be a beautiful thing.